This chapter is called A Good Haircut. And I pulled another book from the shelves. This is A Dream of Red Mansions. It's quite big. It's also 3 volumes, like Les Miserables. This one I read in English, not in Chinese. And the stories were amazing. At the time, I was traveling to China a lot, and I think that gave it some special significance for its insights into Chinese culture. Near the end of the book, it's winter, and one of the fruit trees is blooming, and it's not a good sign at all, and bad things happen after that. You can see that that inspired part of this next chapter. So, A Dream of Red Mansions, a family saga, highly recommended. And let's get to today's reading. A Good Haircut. Unusual things. Paul had risen to the challenges of planting a vineyard, making wine, and protecting vines from mildew, drought, fire, and great monsters. Now, after 25 years of marriage, he rose to the duty of his conjugal vow to show kindness to his wife. Each morning, he made Sheila coffee with great ceremony, disposing the grinds under his favorite vines, which grew stronger and thicker. Then he made her breakfast and washed the dishes before going to work. Evenings, when she asked, "What's for dinner?" instead of answering wine, he asked, "What would you like?" and made her dinner and cleaned the kitchen. He emptied the compost bucket outside each morning, and when he trimmed overgrown trees and bushes, a trash can followed him like a dog to receive every cutting, twig, and weed, so she didn't need to pick up his mess. When they racked new wine into barrels, not one drop spilled. On weekends, he rose early to clean the house, spraying the shower floor with diluted chlorine to keep fungi at bay, and wiped the shower stall's glass spotless with an acid cleaner to dissolve minerals before they grew into stalagmites. He sanitized the toilets and discovered a novel method for using his to minimize splash and reduce cleaning time. He sat. Afterwards, he flushed, sacrificing precious water to keep her calm. Paul returned from a 5-day business trip to find the vineyard pruned from top to bottom, with all the canes bundled neatly at the bottom of the property. How on earth did she do that? Sheila, whose eyesight had gradually returned, found renewed vigor in winter. As he edited the director's cut, she noticed he pulled the bin down the row with him, cutting each cane into bite-sized pieces with hand clippers, none tossed to the ground. She brewed fresh-pressed coffee to reward him. In return, he brought his bride a sprig of flowering almond blossoms. The abominable polar vortex descended from its icicled Arctic cave upon most of the country, sub-zero temperatures. Jane and other New Yorkers left only their eyes uncovered to venture outside, while Jenny Lee's family in Texas bundled in down parkers, chopped wood for their fireplace. San Diego escaped the Arctic blasting and temperatures climbed higher in winter than June. If there was ever a time to visit, this was it. Problem was, during Southern California's winter, you never knew if you'd be visiting during King Lear's storm or a midsummer night's dream. The cougar dressed in shorts and halter top to prune, as Miguel admiringly observed, until he clipped his fingertip. Paul wore a thin layer of long sleeves and pants to protect his skin from sun rays, while the cougar absorbed them. He neglected a hat, paying the price with sunburn. "The sun shines on a different dog's ass every day," Carrie Ann told Paul, who wondered which dogs were deathly ill in Southern California, their guardian angels holding back reins so they could peacefully pass to the next life, warm and dry. Warm temperatures defrosted sap that flowed through the vines, and with each cut the director made, each actress shed a tear. The strange weather affected Paul, who caught cold. Nothing serious, a post-nasal drip that, like the leaky faucet in the bathtub he never fixed, eventually overflowed, so he coughed constantly to keep from drowning. At night, he lay on his stomach with his head on a towel, and after a wad of phlegm burst from the depths of his windpipe, he recalled Bluey's spittle, and coughing like a dead dog took on new meaning. As bad as Paul felt during 3 days of hacking, surely Bluey endured worse, bless his heart. Paul regretted he let the dog suffer so long. Never again, he vowed, never again. Feeling better, Paul rose, and with summer temperatures outside, he ascended the top of the hill to work and thaw out to escape cold inside the house. The peach, apricot, apple, and cherry trees, confused by the weather, bloomed in unison, and fresh green shoots shot from the vines in the dead of winter. A pregnant olive tree offered Paul her oily black marble fruit. As he descended the hill carrying a cherry blossom branch in full bloom, giant California condors, a sight till then unseen, soared high above the valley of death. The unseasonably warm weather left Sheila listless, almost breathless, as her blood began to warm. She increased her medication to keep the pressure below boiling. She smiled at the flowering cherry blooms and asked, "Would you cut my hair?" "Yes, of course, but wouldn't you rather have it cut by a professional?" "I'm too tired to go." He led her to a stool in the sun on the French terrace and combed her hair straight, the ends tickling the middle of her back, the length when they were married, when he would have expressed disappointment if he cut it short. "Cut it to here," she said, lifting a thin arm to her collarbone. The scissors were small, child's scissors really, saddening both. Neither had the energy or time to buy a proper pair to trim hair, and another for cutting chicken. They used what they had, and he combed her bangs over her face and hair over her shoulders, and snipped across her collarbone. "Cut it crispy, please." "I just trimmed 100 vines. I think I can cut your hair." "I pruned 2,000. You win. You're better than me." He snipped again, then recombed the hair down her back, warmed by the sun. He pressed his index finger to the top of her shoulder blade. "Here? That's fine." And he snipped, snip, snip, straight as a tight wire, not droopy, as if cutting through nets to release a tangled bird or snake. "There, you're beautiful," he said. "Please trim my bangs." "How much?" "To here," touching her finger to her chin. She closed her eyes, and as he combed the bangs over her face, he noticed, as if for the first time, the smoothness of her skin, tan, toasty brown, a light toast, like their barrels, from working years in the sun, her doll's nose and her poised lips. He hadn't looked at her in years, not in this way, with affection, and noticed her childlike face, though she was now a senior citizen. Beyond divorce and bad haircuts, he snipped with skill, cutting strands straight without splitting. Finished, he admired his work, as he would a well-pruned vine, and said, "That'll be $100, please." "Go ahead and take it from my account, like you did my other money. I'm going inside to watch the news." "May I make you lunch?" "I'm not hungry," she answered, and then asked, "When are you going to pay me back?" "When I earn the money." "Do you have enough to buy a vacuum cleaner?" "Yes, of course." He reached for his phone, opened the Amazon app, and picked one. "Would you like bags to go with it?" "I have some." "I can buy a package of 20 bags for $20. You won't have to worry about running out." "Okay." When the vacuum arrived, the spring returned to her step, and she attacked the dirt with gusto, Paul realizing all he had to do to please his wife was buy her a vacuum. "Would you prefer a vacuum cleaner or diamonds?" he asked. "Well," she paused for a moment and answered, "Diamonds." And she walked to the copper skillet Mary France gave them as a wedding gift, hanging on the white adobe wall. "If you get me a set of these, I'll be happy." "Let's go to France this year, tour Gascony, and meet Armagnac distillers." They hadn't traveled together since they got a dog, and Sheila brightened at the prospect. Although their house in the hills didn't receive TV signals, they had internet, and Sheila streamed news on her iPad. It was a presidential campaign season, and every day there were stories about the outrageous statements of this politician or that, and she followed everything said and done. What started as an interest became a passion, then an obsession, because she had a dog in the fight. News was available any time, day or night, anywhere in the house, and as soon as she woke in the morning, she looked at the latest reports from her bed, and as she nibbled breakfast, she watched more. Instead of going to the gazebo to change Bluey's water, she stayed inside and watched the midday news. Evenings, she fell asleep, watching in a chair. "It's time for bed. Get up, night-night time," said Paul, who got up after midnight for water and found her. "You really shouldn't watch so much TV." "Why can't I watch if I want? It's the only thing I have. I want to see Hillary," her tone of voice mirroring her response when he suggested she reduce her drinking, and she drank more, so he dropped it. Although she had a new vacuum cleaner, Paul noticed things in the house he'd never seen before. Spider webs, dirt in the corners, layers of dust on furniture. "That's strange," he thought. "She's definitely not well." Paul found her clutching a half-full glass of wine in the chair where she slept, and a week later, an empty bottle next to the chair where she crashed. It was the blush wine. Can something that tastes that good kill you? One morning, Sheila sat by a picture window gazing at the vineyard and saw an animal emerge and thought it was Karl Rove. It hopped, and she realized it was a rabbit searching for food. Finding nothing on the vineyard floor, cleaner than her house. Poor thing, she thought, then saw 3 of them looking for something to nibble. "Paul, there's no food for the rabbits. Could you go outside and give them something to eat?" "I'll take care of it," he said, and stepped outside with clippers and trimmed some tender green shoots and left them on the ground. Sheila looked through the window and saw a large coyote with thick, shiny fur gazing at her. She turned to Paul and whispered, "Outside, coyote." When she looked back, he was gone. Concerned about her health, Paul drove her to the medical clinic to have her checked. A week later, they met with the doctor to review results from blood tests, kidney tests, and EKGs. "Everything looks good. I see no signs of anything wrong, except your blood pressure. Try to stay calm. There's no need to get upset about little things." "May I drink wine?" Sheila asked. "I don't see any harm in a glass a day." "The doctor said 1 glass," Paul interjected, "not the whole bottle." They walked to the parking lot, and he opened the door on the passenger side for her. "You're pretending to be nice, but that won't change anything," she said calmly. "I'll never forgive you." "I'm not so bad, at least most of the time." He closed her door and entered the driver's side. "Thank you," she said, one of the few times he remembered her expressing gratitude, the others when he proposed, and after he planted her a vineyard. "You're not so bad either," Paul said. "What does that mean, not so bad?" "Years ago, when we were planning to divorce, on Easter Day, a voice came to me in a dream and said, 'Sheila's not so bad,' and that I should stay with you." "What kind of God is it who would say such a thing? You're not so bad," she laughed. "A God that watches over you." "Why did you marry me?" "Because I had to. You threatened to kill yourself if I didn't." "No, really, why did we ever get married?" "If I think about it honestly, you were nicer then, and so was I. We loved each other." "What happened?" "Life." Seriously, what happened?" "Kate and Alex changed everything. Raising them was more important than caring for each other." "I never should have married you." "Look at everything we've had together. 2 great kids, Bluey, the vines, and some fantastic wine. We never would have had all that if we didn't marry." "I would have had all that and more with someone else," she thought, and said, "There's one thing I don't have." "What's that?" "A white dress." "Let's get one now." So they drove to Nordstrom's at University Town Center and found a stunning off-white ivory gown with gold embroidery, an elegant dress for a Christmas party, a night at the opera, or Kate's wedding. And when they arrived home, she put it on, admired herself in the mirror, then walked up the cobblestone path to Bluey's grave to show him the dress and change its water, taking in the vista of Grenache vines, macadamia trees, the valley, and the ocean. As she descended toward the house, she detoured to see how the volunteer sunflower she nourished was doing, found it clipped at the stalk, and exploded in rage.